Hi everyone, this is Megan Matos with St. Ange Company, welcoming you to this week's episode of Taking the Supply Chain Pulse, where we chat with leaders from all areas of healthcare to discuss the issues of today's threats, challenges, emerging trends, and advancing technologies. So let's kick back, relax, and get started with your host, the one and only Fred Kranz.
Today, our guest is Michael McCulloch, the Senior Vice President of Supply Chain at Wellstar Health System in Atlanta, Georgia. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Fred. It's great to be here today. Thank you.
Great to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, because I think your background is going to give us some context about our whole discussion today. I think it's important.
Good. Thank you. Yeah. So I started my career in IT, believe it or not. I spent probably 15 plus years in IT. And while in IT, I was developing a lot of supply chain information systems, either developing them or implementing commercial off-the-shelf packages. And so, I learned supply chain from the inside out, and making the transition into supply chain, traditional supply chain, was a very easy transition for me, having all that experience writing information systems. I've spent 8 years in the medical device industry, specifically at J&J, DePuy Orthopedics. I've spent 3 years in the GPO industry, overseeing a med-surg contracting division. And I've spent many, many years in numerous healthcare systems across America. I became introduced to the CSC model with Intermountain Health when I was with Amerinet back in 2012 or 13, I believe it was, a long time ago. And I've been a big believer in that model, in the intermediation model, and worked at LESAR, running their operation, opened the Trinity Health Distribution Center, and here at Wellstar, and have visited a number of CSCs across America. So if you've seen one CSC, you've seen one CSC. That's a little bit about my background. I've been here with Wellstar for almost 7 years now.
Yeah, 6 years and 10 months. That's pretty good.
But who's counting?
I just happened to look it up on LinkedIn. I'm not. But so you got a diverse background, and that's interesting. What I wanted to do today was sort of create a scenario, and I'm a young guy, say I'm in my early 40s. I'm getting my first shot at being a supply chain leader for a medium-sized IDN. I go through the process of being interviewed and passing all the hurdles necessary to get the job offer. And I may or may not have been told by the folks that were hiring me what issues they think they're facing. And I say they think because, as you probably know, they're facing many more issues than they think they're facing. And I show up for work the first day and find something perhaps completely different than what I may have expected. So given that, how would you give advice of how you went about coming into Wellstar with this wealth of experience? Because you've worked for a GPO, you've worked for a supplier, you have worked in a couple of two of the earliest and best known CSCs, the one at Intermountain Health and the one at LESAR, and you opened Trinity's CSC. You've got all this background. And when you were hired by Wellstar, which is, if folks don't know it, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Wellstar, Piedmont, and probably Grady are the three biggest names and biggest IDNs in the Atlanta market. Is that fair to say?
Yep, that is fair to say.
So when you came there, were you given any advanced indication of what problems they thought they faced and they needed you to address? And if so, what were they?
Yeah, great question. I gleaned the most information about Wellstar's current state of supply chain when I was in the interview process, specifically interviewing with what we refer to as our hospital operators. So those would be the CEOs of each of our hospitals. And I'll tell you a little story. I was interviewing with Mary Chapman, who's now one of our EVPs, but at the time she was running our largest hospital, Kennestone. And I think in my interview, the phone may have rang 3 different times with supply chain and supply outage concerns being raised to her. And I could tell that she was becoming really infuriated about all of these supply chain challenges that they were experiencing while I was in the interview, nonetheless. And it was very apparent to me that they had some very significant challenges. She asked me at the time, she said, "Can you fix this?" And of course, my answer was yes. But not knowing any detail around it, it was the how that was still kind of a mystery. And I guess going through that interview process, you can discover a lot of things. I also knew at the time that it was perhaps 18 months earlier that Wellstar had acquired the Tenet hospitals here in the Atlanta area. And as you know from experience, anytime you go through a major acquisition integration, there's going to be a lot of traditional challenges, specifically around integrating information systems, integrating the formulary of medical supplies that are going to be used, and so forth. So I fully anticipated those challenges. Upon arriving here, and I think this is very important, and this is advice that I've leveraged throughout my career, is I use a first 6 months model, and in that first 6 months, I try and meet with 100 people in the first 100 days. And these would be key decision makers and key players within the organization. Quite frankly, almost all of them being customers of supply chain. And I'm taking notes and asking questions and not only building a strong relationship, but understanding what their observations are of supply chain and what their experiences are of supply chain. It doesn't take long before a picture becomes very apparent as to the opportunities within the organization. Generally, at the end of that 6-month period, I'll sit down and begin to craft a strategic plan. And nowadays, it's more of a 3-year plan. At the time we crafted the first Wellstar plan, it was a 5-year plan. With the Wellstar plan, as I reflect back, and we recently dusted it off because we wanted to renew it with a new 3-year plan. But we focused on 4 pillars, and we kind of, as we outlined our strategy, these 4 pillars were core to that strategy that then precipitated down into a more detailed, what we refer to as strategy to action plan. So the 4 pillars, number 1 was, and there's no specific order necessarily. Number 1 was standardization. Again, as I shared, Wellstar had doubled in size virtually overnight and had acquired Tenet hospitals, 5 hospitals specifically, and they were all running, their own formularies of medical supplies. So we had a big opportunity for standardization to drive savings, obviously through standardization, but also improve our distribution capabilities as we moved into a self-distribution model. And then, of course, the clinical outcomes of standardization speak for themselves. Number 2 was Wellstar distribution. We referred to it as Wellstar distribution. Out in industry, you may refer to it as a CSC model. You may refer to it as disintermediation. We refer to it specifically as Wellstar distribution, which encompasses those many facets associated to supply distribution. Third was people development. It was very clear to me that the organization of supply chain had really not been invested in. I would argue to you that many staff were leaving supply chain. It was very difficult to recruit. And in 6 years, we now have a very low turnover rate. And we have many people coming into our organization or knocking on the door saying, hey, what about me? Are there opportunities for somebody like me in supply chain? So we've been highly successful in really turning the organization around with regards to people. Then our fourth pillar was capital, looking at our capital equipment procurement process and how could we benefit from a more robust, collaborative capital equipment purchase program. So we're looking at capital across the system as opposed to this hospital wants to go buy this hospital wants to go buy that. So again, an element of standardization, but certainly across the capital body of spend. So those were really the four pillars. And then, of course, action plans came out of the strategy to action planning program and obviously into execution.
So like everyone else, if I'm the new guy, I'm going to be asked to try to mount a running horse, right? Mm-hmm. And then after I've mounted that running horse, I have to learn how to ride it and then figure out how to get it to go where I think it needs to go. Mm-hmm. And all the while, and I think you pointed out a couple things here that I'd like to talk about. Number one, doubling the size of your system means doubling, as you said, the lack of standardization, the dysstandardization, if you will, which really has to complicate things. And it also brings with it, and from the capital standpoint, probably an infrastructure that's been ignored in many ways and sub-optimized and needs to be put into place. So as you looked at those things, how did you prioritize what things you wanted to do first?
Yeah, great question. When I joined the organization, Wellstar had already leased a building for its CSC and had just not gotten to the point where they were launching their distribution operation. I firmly believe that a big facilitator in driving standardization is going to be controlling the distribution channel. So that was a priority. But in conjunction with standing up and getting the distribution operation running was implementing a real high quality, highly effective clinical quality value analysis organization that was very well aligned with our service lines. We refer to ourselves as the clinically driven supply chain. So we don't make the decisions as to what products will be used. But when our clinicians over that service line make those decisions, we're there to help enforce those decisions around compliance to the standards that they establish. And we've got really great governance and control. That's probably been one of the hallmarks of our operation, and one of the successes that I really like to point out is our CQVA operation and its successful implementation with our physicians and our clinical service lines. So those two things were probably the first two programs that we really acted on in our strategy to action plan. We also implemented an ACI model, which really is the kind of the weekly execution of the output of our CQVA process. So ACI stands for Add, Change, and Activate, and it's the program around our formulary, our item master, as to what Wellstar is going to use as its medical supply base. And so ACI sits on top of that, and anything that goes into our item master must go through ACI, which again comes through the CQVA funnel. With regards to our CSC, we stood that up just in the nick of time. Fred, we got that up and running successfully in October 2019, and everyone knows that it was only months later when COVID pandemic hit the United States, and those of us, I believe, that had high quality CSC operations or distribution operations fared much better than those who didn't when it came to having supplies and distributing supplies. Certainly it wasn't the end all be all, but man, if we didn't have that asset, we would have been in deep trouble. There's no question it really saved the day for us.
Before we dive back in, you may be asking yourself, is my supply chain future ready? At St. Ange Company, we don't just optimize logistics, we engineer smarter, leaner, and more resilient systems from end to end. From manufacturing to retail to healthcare, our experts bring decades of experience and cutting-edge strategies to transform your operations. Visit and discover how we're shaping the future of supply chain one solution at a time.
Well, I got to get back to your clinically driven value analysis team and approach, and the idea of bringing in this a tenant culture in the existing WellStar culture. And last time I looked, there are clinicians involved in these processes, all of whom have egos. How difficult was it to create an atmosphere where people were willing to collaborate toward common standardization from those two different cultures?
As I reflect back, it really wasn't a challenge for us at all. Probably our biggest challenge, which is one my colleagues face all the time, I'm sure, is where we have fewer employed physicians than we have employed physicians. Those always seem to create more challenge for us. But the organization, remember, it had been joined for 18 to 24 months. So I think I joined after that storming, norming, forming time period. And so we really didn't encounter a lot of pushback. And we had, like I say, we had very committed service line physician leaders that were really committed to not just driving price and value into their portfolio, but really standardizing across their service line what were the products that they were going to use. And we like I said, we've never really pushed the message of, oh, let's save. We pushed the message around what is clinically appropriate, knowing that the savings was going to be a byproduct of that. And it always has been. Always is a big word. So I'll say in 99% of the cases, it has been. Probably 100 though, Fred.
Yeah, I know. And that's always been my big thing is the phrase value analysis itself tells everything about what it's supposed to be. And in too many places, value analysis just covers up the name Product Standardization Committee that was there previously, and they don't make any changes in their approach. Real value analysis gets into the best product and delivering the best value to the patient for whatever it's used for. So so the other thing you said that I thought was interesting, it's almost passed by me, was that you said when you originally came there, you had a 5-year plan, and now you have pared that down to a 3-year plan. Could you tell me what made you make that change and what your thinking is behind going from a longer to a briefer span of a plan?
Yeah. Fred, I may have misspoke. What's happened is, I've been here almost 7 years now. So our 5-year, when we hit 5 years, we stepped back and we reflected on our 5-year plan and what had we accomplished and what had we not accomplished. And then we recast a new plan based on the things that we felt were needed in our organization. And what we've done, instead of looking out 5 more years, we've only looked out 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason why we looked out 3 is just because things are changing so rapidly. I mean, it's insane how fast the industry is moving now. And we felt, when we measured our 5-year plan, we felt that we had really done well in all of our areas. We felt like we could do better in some areas. There was no question about that. But we really were confident and pleased with what we had accomplished in the 5 years, especially in light of a 2-year pandemic that no one anticipated coming. We were very proud of our accomplishments, but we also realized that we still had gaps, and we still do today. And so the new 3-year plan is how do we address those gaps that we've identified at this juncture.
And what are, generally speaking, some of those gaps that you think you need to address?
Yeah, great question. I forgot to mention, we also implemented Workday and went live on that 2 years ago. So that was another big challenge. And then we acquired WMCG, which is the old Augusta University healthcare system. So we've been working diligently to integrate that into our operation, including integrating them into Wellstar distribution. And also, we onboarded them just over a year ago, onto our Workday implementation. But getting back to some of the gaps, many of the things that were in our first plan are a continued journey, right? Standardization, continuing to work with our service lines to drive value through each of the service lines. That's just an ongoing day-to-day blocking and tackling thing now. But the good news is it's part of our DNA. It's our culture. It's what we're focused on every day we come to work. Probably the biggest opportunity that we see and that we're focused on right now, we're going through a GPO RFP. We believe that we really want to sharpen our focus on our GPO relationship and the tools that they can bring to our organization. We had been with our current GPO, over 14 years. When I dusted off the contract, it was a 14-year-old contract. They do a great job for us, but we felt it was in our best interest to examine the landscape and see what's out there today. Another big area of opportunity that we're going to be focused on in the coming months is implant management. And we've got a couple of things going on in that regard. We're piloting a software product called Surgery Exchange and really tightening up our implant formulary, specifically implants through the bill-only PO process. We feel like there's a great opportunity there. We feel like we've done extremely well in standardization in all things probably clinical preference and commodity, and we've done fairly well in some of the easier PPI categories or physician preference item categories, but some of the more complex ones we can do better. So we're going to be focused on that, and Surgery Exchange will be a core component of that strategy. And then the third one that I would share is a project that we actually started 4 years ago, quite frankly. We started it 4 years ago. And if you go back to my opening story about my interaction in the interview process with Mary Chapman, core to our complete end-to-end supply chain reengineering has been the Blue Bin Kanban solution. We refer to it here as Wellbin. Since we're Wellstar, we've rebranded it as Wellbin. But all of our hospitals are being completely transitioned from an old style power management strategy, whether it's a clinical area, OR area, or whether it's a med surg area. We're moving everything to a simple Kanban solution. And it's been remarkable, the impact of that in conjunction with our distribution center CSC operation. Our fill rates right now at the point of use are somewhere around 99.89%. Our fill rate coming out of our CSC is just over 99.8%. So, Mary doesn't get those phone calls anymore, Fred. But we're going to complete that strategy. That's going to run out till the end of next calendar year. So those are really the areas that we're focused on, and I truly believe that if we can get all those done, we're just going to go to the next level.
Yeah, I used to tell people that in the old days, the three goals every day as a supply chain leader were to show up at work on time, don't get yelled at while you're there, and go home on time. Because at 4:31 you couldn't find anyone anywhere. They'd all gone home. But that's not the case anymore.
I wish it were that easy, Fred.
It used to be, because when you think about it, before we had these large IDNs, basically someone just backed a truck up to the dock. We unloaded it, either put it on shelves in the warehouse or took it straight to where it was going. It was a much easier set of needs than today. But you mentioned something that I think a couple things. Number one, aside from the very largest IDNs, there are needs out there in resources that many people can't afford to have. can't afford. And my whole thought about what I call them the organizations formerly known as GPOs, is that they no longer can survive on getting you the best price on Band-Aids, because that's really not your primary concern. They need to be perceived by you as providing a value that merits them being your representative. So what types of value adds will you be looking for in this GPO RFP that you're putting out there?
Yeah, great question, Fred. And you're right. I think the GPOs serve a great purpose. They have for many, many years, many decades, when it comes to having a really sound portfolio of foundational contracts. Imagine, we have right now upwards of 1,800 supply and supply service contracts in our portfolio. And I couldn't tell you right now the ratio of which are GPO and which are local, but it's very high GPO. For me to go out and write all those contracts for my own healthcare system would require an army of staff. So I truly believe that traditional niche of a GPO is a valuable niche, and one that we value and would never hope to never have to replace. But there's more, right? Just as more is expected of me, more is expected of you, more is expected of each of our supply chain organizations. There's more that we expect of our GPOs. We just concluded today, actually, our third technology review or one technology review with each of 3 GPOs. And I was just fascinated at how things have progressed with regards to P2P capabilities, with regards to pharmacy and medical supply spend management capabilities. It's really impressive what each of the GPOs is bringing to bear in regards to information technologies that can help us better manage the supply chain functions of our hospital system. So we're really going to be focused on those value-added software capabilities that can help us run a better operation.
So we're coming toward the end of our discussion here. What did I forget to ask about that you'd like to talk about for a minute or two?
Well, I got to congratulate your Miami Hurricanes on beating my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So kudos to you, and hopefully you guys have a great season. I guess as the new and younger talent comes into the industry, it's been exciting for me. As you shared, I've worked in a number of industries, and I think that's always added a lot of value. Whenever you can stand in somebody else's shoes, you not only learn their perspective, but you learn their business. So I encourage those who are coming up behind us, learn as much as you can. Be patient with yourself, show empathy, and work hard. And it's an exciting career. I have no regrets whatsoever as I kind of enter the tail end of my career. So thank you, Fred, for giving me this opportunity to share more about what's going on here at Wellstar. I tell folks from time to time we're the best kept secret in healthcare, because I just don't know that too many folks know who Wellstar is, but it's a great organization, great people, and I've been blessed with one of the best teams that a professional or a leader in supply chain could ever be blessed with.
But does your headquarters have an address that doesn't include the word Peachtree in it?
It doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't. So we're up in Marietta. The other guys are a little further south.
I mean, you can't go to, if you tell Atlanta, you tell someone you're on Peachtree, they're going to say, so what? Which one?
Yeah, which one?
Well, Michael, it's been great having you on as a guest, and I hope to have you on again in the future. It was a great conversation. I think this is good fodder for young folks that are perhaps getting their first big job and as leading a supply chain to think about, because it's tough. Like I say, you're asked to mount a running horse and steer it in the right direction, often with not having been given enough information to make it easy. That's for sure. So thanks for your insights. I think people will appreciate what you've shared.
Thank you, Fred. You have a great day.
Yep, we'll see you in the future. Thank you.
Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for joining. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and connect with us online where you can find all of our episodes. If you have a topic you would like to discuss or want to be a guest on the show, you can reach out to Fred directly at fcrans@stonge.com. See you next time.